The Local Government and Municipal Finance Committee will come to order. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Chair Fitzgerald.
Here.
Representatives Burns.
Here.
Shannon. Breen.
Present.
Rogers.
Here.
Hill.
Here.
Hoskins.
Here.
Pies.
Present.
Zorn. Paquette.
Here.
Gazat.
Here.
Goal.
Here.
Preston.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. I need a motion to approve and adopt the minutes from the previous meeting. That motion is made by Representative Breen. Seeing no objection, the minutes are adopted. To begin today, one moment. To begin today, we're going to take testimony on House Bills 4312 and 4313. Those are sponsored bills by Representatives Kofia and Roth. We are joined today by Representative Roth to testify. Representative, you might like to make your way forward. When you are ready, you can begin your testimony, and we look forward to hearing about 4312 and 4313. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. Appreciate it very much, and members of the committee. Thank you for letting me bring these bills forward to try and see if we fix it. We have Mr. Fred Baker with us today. He's got the more technical end of it, can explain a little bit more if it need be. HB 4312 will help summer resorts convert to a modern nonprofit. They're under an 1895 bill right now, which has very strict limits to how much can be spent, what can be done. It's really not convenient for today's modern nonprofits. So if they want to right now, this will also help them maintain common property and facilities. When we say resorts, we don't mean Magic Kingdom, Wyndham, one of those. These are more summer resort facilities where they've ganged up together to become an association. So the law is, again, it's from 1800s. To manage common assets such as the lake access, community buildings, or roads in the community, they come under this agreement. We've been working with Mr. Fred Baker, who's with us today, and Neotawana Point Association's a point on the Old Mission Peninsula, Grand Traverse County. He's going to understand or come from that end because they've been working together. Traverse City, we have the Traverse City Golf and Country Club that is actually under an 1895 bill also, just because it's that old a facility. That was all that was available at the time. So we talked about this last year. It did make it through the House last year with a pretty bipartisan support. Got to the Senate and just ran out of time in the Senate to finish it up. So we're hoping to get it done again today. I will let Mr. Baker talk about the more technical ends of it or anything. I know you did receive a letter, right? Or hopefully you received a letter to your inbox or to your personal email where we talked about some of this resort facility, but I'll let Mr. Fred Baker continue on.
Thank you.
Is the button on, Fred? Is that red button on? There we go.
Thank you, Representative Roth, and thank you for the chance to appear before you and answer some questions. I'd like to briefly outline in a little bit more detail what my client, Neotawana Resort Association, is trying to accomplish and has been trying to accomplish for over 7 years. We started with Representative Inman, and things, the wheels kind of fell off when he had some difficulties. And as Representative Roth mentioned, it didn't quite make it through last year. I do have extra copies with one of my fancy pens with a flashlight and a stylus. If anybody, if the clerk would care to distribute these to anyone who doesn't have a copy. I don't know that I have enough for everyone, but call me and I'll
Yep.
give you
Go ahead, Fred.
Where's the clerk?
Yep, there we go. So this has been going on for a while. We got close last year, got real close. Some of the conversations that's been had that maybe some people have asked to make sure this isn't somewhere where they're going from a profit to a nonprofit or vice versa. It is simply, the only reason they can't do it today is in the 1895 bill, there was no provision by Lara to let them go into a nonprofit. That's it. Representative Kofia's bill actually points out the modern nonprofit they have to go into, so it really limits what they can do, but at the same time, gives them a little more freedom of how much money they can raise and different things they can do with the actual facility. Go ahead, Fred.
Actually, yes. In 1897, LARA didn't exist, nor did nonprofit corporations. That legislation was adopted in the 20th century. What Niatawanta and I should say, all 45 of the associations known to be organized under the 1897 Act 230 have been polled. We canvassed them by mail, and 5 responded saying that they were in favor of it, and none responded to say that they were opposed. There is interest in conversion among other summer resort associations because it would allow greatly simplified procedures for carrying out the business of the corporation. One of the questions that I think was raised in the past that I do want to address is why isn't the bill that was adopted, that was sponsored by Senator Schmidt, sufficient to address these concerns? First of all, it doesn't permit conversion. All it did was to address 2 or 3 of the problems that existed with the law as it now or then provided, by increasing the amount or the value of the personal property that could be held by a summer resort association to account for the inflation that's occurred in the past 125 years. But it still puts a limit, an arbitrary limit, on the amount of personal property the summer resort association may hold. And as you may imagine, personal property held by a summer resort association in these days of greatly inflated values and steeply increased values of waterfront property, especially if the houses themselves are owned by the association and are not considered fixtures, but are in fact personal property because they're not owned by the members, but are held by them under the terms of the association agreement. Personal property could greatly exceed even that amount, which I think was $6 million. The most troublesome provisions are those that prohibit the issuance of shares of stock. Only 1 share per member is permitted under Act 230. And after a few generations, that means that families have to figure out how to vote a share and how to hold it. They have to create a separate corporate entity or a limited liability corporation or a trust, and then voting those shares becomes a problem as well. And although Senator Schmidt's bill, SB 129, and this is covered in the memo, I'm just hitting some high points, allowed the owner of a share to designate a family member to serve as a director, which solved the problem of requiring directors to be shareholders when perhaps 8, 10, 12, 14 family members may all be tied to 1 share under Act 230, which allows the shareholder to designate a person to serve as director even though they don't hold a share. That actually introduces a problem because it's unclear. Another provision of the Act that was not modified requires that if a director ceases to own any stock in the corporation, the director ceases to be a director. If a nominee owns no share, does that provision still apply? And if the nominee is nominated by a shareholder from whom the share devolves, does that invalidate that nomination and cause that person to cease to be eligible to serve as a director? You can see the problems that are caused by an archaic and rigidly designed scheme. Probably the most troublesome aspect of SB 129 was that although at the request of some who had concerns that the modification of Act 230 would allow action by fewer than a majority of all shareholders, and a requirement that all actions taken be taken by a majority of the shares held rather than a majority of a quorum, that introduces a new problem, because summer resort associations typically schedule their meetings in the summer when the residents are there, and they may come from as far away as North Carolina, Virginia, Pennsylvania. And so they may not have a majority of the members present to hold a meeting. There's no provision for proxies under Act 230. So it introduces now a new problem in simply taking corporate action to spend an amount, $30,000, which is really quite modest when you consider the cost of improving roadways or protecting shoreline with riprapping and so forth. The act is still quite rigid and unworkable or highly inconvenient for those who simply want to take care of their association and conduct association business. So the cap on the number of shares still exists, and I guess I would emphasize that this doesn't make conversion mandatory. It simply allows conversion to a nonprofit by those who find the current provisions of Act 230 unwieldy and cumbersome, and who would prefer to do business as a modern corporation. If I may add, there's an appendix. I didn't want to go into every problem that the Act poses for those who operate under it, but the appendix describes the problem that's posed by Lara's position. They will not issue a declaratory ruling on whether we could carry out a merger with a nonprofit corporation unless we actually take the actions necessary to effect that merger. But the Act provides that if the corporation is dissolved for any reason, all of the land that is common and held by the association reverts to the public. And that would mean that even if the merger were not permitted, then it would still be regarded as a dissolution of the corporation that might not be permitted by Lara. And in that case, all of this land that has been held in common by the association would suddenly become public land. They would risk losing everything they hold. In Neotawanta's case, much of the common land that they hold has been subjected to conservation easements for the benefit of the public and to preserve green space. And it has hypothetical roads in the original plat that would become public, even though the roads don't exist, and the land itself could be forfeit. That's not a fair penalty to impose, or a fair uncertainty to impose on an association that simply wants to modernize the way it carries out business. These acts together simply provide certainty for those who wish to change the form of organization under which they operate. And I would stress that Ms. Frick, the executive director of the State Tax Commission, who, because I have a hobby of asking about last names, I discovered is a direct descendant of Andrew Carnegie's partner, Mr. Frick, who may or may not have been responsible for the Johnstown flood, but we'll let that pass. Reviewed this with a fine-tooth comb. I wrote her a memorandum, and I can provide you copies of it if you wish. I think it was about 20 pages long with a lot of attachments to demonstrate that this does not have any adverse revenue impact on any local government or any entity of state government. It is revenue neutral, as I haven't seen the bill analysis for this. I shouldn't confess that, but I haven't. But it should say that it's revenue neutral, and so did the past bill analyses after Ms. Frick finished her review and released Treasury's hold on the predecessor bills. I hope I can answer any questions you may have, and I hope you'll give this favorable consideration. It's an extremely modest and innocuous piece of legislation.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, do
yes.
you want to talk about the Outman bill now, or they've all kind of fit together.
We have a couple questions.
Sure.
Why don't we ask these first, and
Yes,
then we
sir.
can bring up the additional bills here
Sounds good.
momentarily. Representative Hill.
Thank you. Thank you for that history. My question is, you mentioned a country club as being one that's eligible. It's my understanding that a 501c3 does have to have a public purpose. And so how would I thought, and my understanding, and I would like to be corrected, is a country club is, exclusive to its members. So how would a country club fall under the 501c3 designation and other organizations? How would that work?
They might have, sorry, Fred, go
I
ahead.
can answer that
Yeah.
question. A 501c3 is a charitable tax-exempt entity under federal taxation law. These are not tax-exempt entities. They do pay taxes, and they are not organized for an educational or religious purpose. Now, I know that there is some legislation directed at the 1887 Summer Resort Act, which does allow organization of summer resorts for on a religious basis, such as Bayview was originally Methodist, although that's been changed.
Yeah.
Recently, it was established that a Jewish person could be a member of that club. So I don't purport to speak to their situation. It's a different act and a different situation. But none of these summer resort associations are 501c3s. They are, in fact, private clubs. And so they can be nonprofit without being 501c3. That's the distinction.
So they'd be like a 501c6 or C4?
They
or
would not be
C4,
exempt
but
in any way
C6.
under the federal tax law.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
They're not exempt in any way under the federal tax law. They wouldn't fall under the 501 sections.
Okay, so you're.
They're simply
I thought this was to have
nonprofit under state law.
So are they being converted to 501c3? I thought I heard you say that. I'm confused.
No, I think what you're doing is conflating 501c3 status with nonprofit status. They're two separate concepts. And a nonprofit corporation may or may not be tax exempt
Okay, I guess
under the federal tax law.
I thought this law was specifically to allow organizations to be, it says a charitable institution.
It allows conversion to a nonprofit corporation. A not-for-profit corporation is not synonymous with a 501c3 entity.
Okay, thank you.
All of these summer resort associations are taxable and do pay taxes. Nietawanta pays taxes,
Okay,
and that will not be affected. They will still pay taxes.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Representative Pice.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So then they would still continue to pay taxes?
Oh, yes.
They
No,
would?
revenue neutral. Absolutely no
neutral.
impact on their taxability or the revenue derived from them.
Okay, so you said they may or may not pay taxes, so I'm wondering, does this leave the door open then for them to not pay taxes at
No.
some point?
If I said may or may not pay taxes, I misspoke, because they do pay taxes and will continue to pay taxes.
Okay, and you mentioned something also that's making me about public easements and such. So with the nonprofit status then, do they no longer have to be accountable to the state for some of the state's needs?
I don't know what accountability you're referring to, but the easements would survive this. They would remain, the conservation easements that have been placed on Nietawanta's common property would remain, and that land would remain open space, green space, generating oxygen, providing habitat for animals, and so forth.
So the way everything is set up now then would stay, and the government then would still be able to do, if they need more, or changed easements or something.
The government always has the power under eminent domain to take any property it wishes if it can show necessity. The easements would remain in place and would be entirely unaffected by conversion from one corporate form to another.
Thank you.
And it's important that that be clear in your mind. I'm
Yeah.
telling you the truth. It's simply to allow corporate governance in a modern way without the hamstringing effect of some of the archaic provisions of Act 230. They simply want to be able to have an executive director who can make decisions and a board that can function by means of proxies and take advantage of such provisions of the the Nonprofit Corporation Act as allowing meetings by telephone.
I want to thank the chair for his indulgence for a moment. You mentioned stocks and shares.
Yes.
Does that continue under nonprofit status?
Yes, and there are shares in membership organizations, in nonprofit organizations.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Let's wrap up the discussion here on 4312 and 13. That way we can bring up 4977 and 78. So I do have one card to read in. Not wishing to speak. Neutral on the bill, Mac Jones from Laura. So with that, I'd like to just begin the discussion then on 4977 and 4978, bills sponsored by Representatives Outman and Roth. And seeing as we have Representative Roth here, take it away.
I'll do my best on these. It's very similar to what we just discussed, except you are into now the situation like at Bayview and Petoskey area, where you have a community that could conceivably be considered a religious organization or groups of homes of a community of religious people or whatever.
They're often considered Chautauqua organizations.
Thank you.
From the original educational and religious oriented camp or club in New York, Chautauqua. They have a tradition of having lectures, lecturers. They have a religious programming if they're a religiously oriented organization. And I'm sorry for the interruption,
No,
but that's a handy sobriquet to use,
Yeah.
Chautauqua, for that.
Chautauqua.
The organizations, the associations organized under that legislation. I'll shut up. I'm sorry.
No, you're on. So it's very similar. They want to do the same situation, basically, is what we just talked about. So it's just a different group, still a nonprofit, going to nonprofit. This is not changing its status other than it gives it more flexibility through the modern nonprofit. So, so many of these laws that we still are finding that are on the books from the 1800s need to be revised and revisited so we can get more up to date. And then I think it's much easier with everything, whether it's transfer of property, setting what they can and cannot do. It just makes more sense to get to this situation. Personally, I won't go that I wanted to sunset all this stuff so they would go to a modern nonprofit so we wouldn't have to deal with the future, but I'm not pushing that. I just want to let these groups, if they want to get to this situation, get there. So it's not a mandate.
Do we have any questions from the committee? Yes, looks like Representative Breen.
Thank you. About how many summer resort and park associations are there, and what's your favorite one?
Well, I think that's going to be bad for Fred. He's going to tell you exactly.
I can't answer how many there are under the 1887 Act. I can, or 1887, I think it is, the Chautauqua Summer Resort Association Act. And there are, by the way, other summer resort association. There is other summer resort association legislation out there. This was how they were like private bills almost that were enacted. That was how corporations were originally formed. Each one required an act of the legislature. And so what you're looking at is sort of a continuum in how the corporate form was modernized over a period of 175 years, roughly, from the beginning when the state was originally formed. It took a bill from the legislature to form a corporation. And each had its own legislatively granted charter. I can't tell you how many there are organized under the Chautauqua legislation that we were just talking about. There are 45 that we could identify from Lara's records of the Act 230 entities. One of which, by the way, was allowed to merge. It's mentioned in a footnote. Lara changed its position so that, we went there thinking we could do what they had done, the Cascade Country Club, I think it was. It's in the footnote, and I'm not going to look it up because it's there in the memo. And they said no, they had changed their position on it. And so that began the saga, which before I got involved, I mean, this was like 2014. These folks were sent to me when they couldn't figure out what to do by their own attorney who couldn't figure out what to do. And a lot of people have looked at this, and I said, we could litigate, but that's wasteful and uncertain outcome, and why don't we just try to get this straightened out going to the legislature? Famous last words. It's taken 8 years. I actually had some hair up here when we started this process. And I really hope it goes through this time, because these people have just tried to find a solution to very straightforward problems. Anyway, 45 is the answer to your question. I talk too much.
We know, yeah.
Representative Breen, keeping it light. That's wonderful. Thank you. Seeing no other questions, I do have one card to read in, 4977 and 4978. Not wishing to speak and neutral on the bill. Mac Jones from Lara. Seeing no further questions from the committee on this bill set, we will go ahead and dismiss you all. We'll be sure to have any members of the committee follow up with you on any questions that may be lingering, but we appreciate your informative testimony here today on these 4 bills. So thank you so much.
May I say, I only brought 10. I underestimated the size of the committee. If anybody needs a copy of that memo or wants one of my pens, call me. The phone number is in the memo.
We'll make sure that the clerk distributes the information so that the information will be disseminated. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we are going to move on in today's agenda. We'll be bringing up Senate Bill 0337, a Senator Polhanke bill. We do have, excuse me. We have Caitlin Stadler from Senator Polhanke's office here today to testify, and we also have joining her at the table here Arthur Brintnall, Michigan Society of Professional Surveyors. So the floor is yours, and you may begin when you're ready.
Okay. Thank you to Chair Fitzgerald, Majority Vice Chair, Minority Vice Chair, and other members of the committee for allowing me to testify on Senator Polhanke's Senate Bill 337. This bill is the result of a lot of collaboration between our office, the Professional Surveyors Association, land use attorneys, and the Realtors Association. Senate Bill 337 will create uniform standards for recording copies of certified survey maps and update requirements that will enable professional land surveyors to utilize new technology to improve the accuracy of certified survey maps. Current statutes related to certified surveys have not been updated since 1970. Many procedures that were used to survey and prepare certified survey maps 53 years ago are no longer used and have been replaced by GPS, computer-aided drafting, and electronic total stations. Under the current law, professional surveyors must handwrite or type certified survey maps. This bill would modernize this requirement to allow for the use of newer technology. Additionally, this bill provides professional surveyors with optional methods for marking property corners when there are physical obstructions, such as pavement or large rocks or utility cables present. This bill specifies that if a survey is completed, the grantor or lessor shall record an original certified map at or before the time of conveyance in the county in which the land is located, unless a professional surveyor has already done so. Thank you again to Chair Fitzgerald and members of the committee, and I'm happy to answer any questions, though Mr. Brintnell here is certainly more of an expert in this area.
And I believe you know you wish to speak, so feel free to share your comments.
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald and the members for allowing me to come up and speak. This is completely out of my wheelhouse, but hopefully I answer your questions the way you would hope they would be done. The one thing I would like to say as far as when this bill first came out, we didn't see any problem with it. We put it out. There wasn't any, we didn't think there was going to be any problem with it. And the realtors came out and they did not like the way we'd put it together. We worked with them, both associations. We worked hard and managed to come to an agreement, which is very good, and it went through the Senate very easily after that. But because realtors have short-term goals in their life, it's, you know, get a client, get a property, sell it, and move on. Surveyors have a long-term goal. We want to be able to come back, reproduce that property that has been sold and made, you know, 100, 200 years from now. So that's the fact that we came together with a language that worked for both of us, I think, was speaks highly of both associations. So. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Britnall. Any questions from the committee here today on Senate Bill 337? Seeing none, you've done an exceptional job with your testimony. Thank you both for being here. I do have a few cards to read in. Not wishing to speak in support of the bill, Ron Brenke with the American Society of Engineering Companies, ACFC. Not wishing to speak in support of the bill, Ryan Roth with the Michigan Society of Professional Engineers. And not wishing to speak in support of the bill, Amanda Tomic, apologize if I mispronounced that, with the Michigan Assessors Association. So with that will conclude testimony today on Senate Bill 337. We'll be taking this up for a vote in the future, and we thank you for your time today. With that, just noted for the record, we do have Representative Shannon on Zoom with us today. And so seeing no members absent and no further business before this committee will stand adjourned.